So if you see this picture, it's kind of a overview of, you see the Mediterranean Sea up there, you see Mount Carmel over there, you see the Sea of Galilee. I don't know if you can't see my pointer, so no worries about that. All right, but dead center, you see Bashan, right? So Og, king of Bashan, is king of this entire area, and just north of Bashan is Mount Hermon. So when it talks about in scripture, when it talks about the tyrants from the north, it's not talking about Russia, which Gog and Magog, that's the type of Tom Horn and Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins with the Left Behind series. All of those were misunderstanding this and not recognizing that the tallest peak that Israel would have known about is Mount Hermon. It's about 9,000 feet, if I'm remembering what I read correctly. It's about 9,000 feet above any of the other peaks around the area. So it's the tallest peak. So you see where Mount Hermon is, and Bashan is right south of it. Mount Hermon is the place where all of the Canaanite tribes, Ugaritic and all the other tribes that are in that area, believed that their gods descended on the earth and made the Rephaim kings, the Nephilim. So you have this deep cultural seedbed of stories that Mount Hermon is the place where the gods descended, little g, and Og is the king that is closest to this place. So I want you to see this, because there's something I want to bring up in the New Testament later on, but hopefully we get there. But I just wanted you to see this map so you can see, here's Bashan, here's Mount Hermon. All right. So here's another. No, that's good. Okay. I can stop sharing now. So.
Okay. I'll remove it. Yeah. Okay.
There we go. Yeah. So where Og is closest to the place where all the cultures that Israel is now fighting, these giant cultures, would think that their gods are from. So Og is like the last defense against the onslaught of their most holy mountain, if you see it from that perspective, right? So
I'm sorry, I just want to add, like, this is another layer of spiritual warfare. You see Mount Sinai fighting Mount Hermon. Yes. You see God Mountain attacking I don't know if I can call it the devils, but you can see attacking enemies' mountains. So this is where topics and words and terms such as cosmic geography and things of that sort come to bring another layer of biblical theology, where you have to study not just biblical text, but also extra biblical stuff that, maybe even written by non-Christian authors, but doesn't matter if they're true. They're helpful to us to understand, how the ancient people saw, certain mountains as holy, who was dwelling there, what was important about the height, and what gods dwelled in these regions, and all these things that make us see the whole bigger picture. And then hopefully there will be a light bulb above our head saying, now I understand Bible better. But right. Yeah, please continue.
All right. So with Og, there was this legend that goes along with it. And they say in our scriptures that you could still see his bed. It was 15 feet long and at least 6 feet wide. Right. And given that we've already given some of the context of how you get 2/3 divine, 1/3 human, this is that ritual bed. So whether or not they were actually 15 feet tall is inconsequential to there actually was an iron bed that was discovered in this area that was 15 feet tall. So whether or not there was 15-foot giants, the ritual that this is alluding to was going on. And so we have, let's see, Etemenanches, the Tower of Babel king, was the high priest who would ritually embody the god through sacrifices and blood drinking, and then have sex with a temple slave or temple prostitute on that bed. Child born would have 2 fathers and 1 mother. And we've already covered most of this previously. So the same thing goes with if it was a priestess and they represented the god. Okay. So that's where you get this. That's the bed that this would happen on. It's in the ritual understanding, like you can see this in the description of Dagon and Dagon's temple and Samuel, is that their understanding of their gods were about 15 feet tall when they manifested to humanity. So that's, once again, whether or not they were actual physically giants that size, their ritual interaction with their gods, the gods that they interacted with, manifested at that height. So I'm not as good with references outside of scripture. There are scholars that have talked about that, and so don't take my word for it. Look for that. You don't have to take my word for it. That's the main point of that. So this type of ritual is not just tied to Canaan. You see this across the globe. So Egyptians have something very similar to this. This is close to the Ugaritic, which was something recently discovered in the last 30, 40 years. The Sumerians also talk about this ritual in their text. And today it's actually happening in Japan. And over history, you could see that there's something very similar when it comes to the ziggurats. The house at the top of the ziggurats would have a ritual room for things like this. And that's global, even when you're talking about the Incas and the Mayans, right? And one of the things that was talked about, whether or not anybody agrees with what Columbus did when it comes to the Incas and Mayans, one of the things that he did see was the cannibalism and the human sacrifice and the blood drinking, which is what we've been talking about when it comes to these giants, is that whether or not we think Columbus is justified in some of the tyrannical ways he treated people that he met here, he did find people that were doing things like this